Hey guys, welcome to Living Satisfied. I am Ellie and this is baby Claire, and today we're going to be doing my birth story, my labor and delivery story with her. I am so excited to do this video. I'm going to put her down real quick. All right, so I went ahead and put her down, but I'll try to show some like pictures and stuff like that of her during the video. And if you hear her sucking, it's on a pacifier next to me. So hopefully she'll be good for this video. I have tried to verbally speak out this delivery video a couple times, like in practice, and I feel like it just is really long, and so bear with me. I want to give enough information for it to make sense, but not so much information that it bores you. And so if you see that this video is kind of long, it's because I'm trying to be, I don't know, explain everything that kind of went on. So I want to start with a little bit before labor and delivery, and that's because I had gestational diabetes. If you haven't seen my videos beforehand, I'll have some in the iCards above, and I'll maybe link some down below, or you can just check out my YouTube page in general. I had gestational diabetes with both my kids, so this was my second labor and delivery experience, and during this pregnancy, I had a harder time managing my sugars. Again, you can learn more about that in some of my other videos. But I ended up having to get put on insulin at 36 weeks pregnant. And so my doctor really wanted me to get induced by 39 weeks just because I was on insulin. That puts you in a higher risk category and all the kind of complications that can kind of come with that. And she did end up having low blood sugars post-delivery, and so I think it was good that we delivered a week early so that her body was able to adapt a little bit better. She lost her pacifier. So I was induced at 39 weeks pregnant. My doctor told me on the Wednesday before. I delivered on July 31st, and that Wednesday before, my doctor told me that she was going to induce me. We talked about it, my husband and I prayed about it a lot, and I spoke with my doula. I really wanted a natural labor and delivery like I had with my son. I did have complications at the very end of my delivery with him, so I was kind of hoping to like redeem that experience, which I don't know if I did or not, but you can watch that video in an iCard above, my labor and delivery story with him. But we got induced. That was a decision that we made, and I think it was a good decision. So on Monday, July 31st, we went in to get induced. And part of the reason why I wanted natural labor and delivery is because with every medical intervention you get, you run a higher risk for more medical interventions. And so, you know, by getting induced, the likelihood of needing an epidural is really high, or needing a C-section gets higher after you get an epidural. And so I really wanted to do things naturally as possible, and my doctor and my nurses were very supportive of that. But I had to get induced for medical reasons, so there's that. We arrived at 7 a.m. on that day. Again, she lost her pacifier. You're okay. And by 8 a.m. we started the process of getting induced. And so they had to do an IV, and that was kind of a frustrating process because they pricked me 4 times in order to get the IV started. For whatever reason, my veins kept rolling. I've never had that issue before. I've had my blood taken hundreds of times for like other medical reasons in life, and I don't know. So they started in my arm here. That didn't work. They put it in my hand. That didn't work. And so that nurse was like, okay, I'm a 2 and done kind of nurse, so if I can't get it the second time, I'm gonna let someone else try. And I was like, I appreciate that. So the next nurse tried, and she tried up on my arm. That didn't work. And so they called the anesthesiologist and was like, we can't get this needle in her arm. And because the needle is a lot bigger for these IVs too, that kind of complicated things. But the anesthesiologist came in, which was great because she was able to numb the area. She put lidocaine in first and then put the needle in. And even she had to like kind of dig around for it. Oh. But I was very, very thankful that it was numbed for that process, because that sucker hurt. So we got the IV started. They had me on like some fluids, and then they started me on Pitocin. I want to say it was probably around like 8:30 or so when they started me. I asked my nurse kind of the process, and she said that they would be increasing my Pitocin dosage every 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and ultimately get me to contract every 2 to 3 minutes. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And so we got started. I was contracting already when I got to the hospital, but it just wasn't like consistent enough. I was 3.5 centimeters also when I got to the hospital. And so I was already progressed. I was like 75% effaced. I was doing really well. I was very ripened for the process, so that was good. So I didn't have to do any like estrogen creams down there or anything like that to like help ripen my cervix. We just did the Pitocin. So around, she's put her press fire again. I'm trying to rock her. She's sitting next to me. So we started the process. We called my doula as soon as Pitocin started, and she started heading over because it was about an hour drive for her. And so she got there around 10 o'clock, I think. And we had just been walking and kind of trying to like keep things moving. For me, I kind of like suffer in silence. I'm not one to like really like speak a lot when I'm having like pain or things like that. I just kind of want to like be in my bubble and try to like cope with it myself. And so I had headphones in. My husband and I would just walk up and down the hall. We had a wireless monitor for the baby, which is awesome. So I just had to like hold the little IV carrier, and we just walked and walked and walked. And because I had gestational diabetes, we were also having the blood sugar taken every hour or so, just to make sure that everything was in range. Every single time they took my blood sugar, it was low. And so you want your blood sugar to be between 80 and 120, and mine was sitting at like 70, like in the 70s. And so I was not feeling very energetic. You know, you're not allowed to eat prior to delivery. And so I was already kind of hungry. They gave me Sprite to drink, which was awesome. But that was just to try to keep my blood sugar up. I don't drink sodas anyways. And so I was kind of getting tired of drinking soda. Around 10:30, my anesthesiologist talked to us. I actually had low platelets, which was interesting. I think they were like in the 90s. And so they were a little bit concerned that the doctor might not want to do an epidural. But luckily we did get cleared for an epidural after that process, but my blood platelets were kind of low, which is, I guess, fairly common when you're in labor. I don't know. I didn't have that with my last kid, but this time around, I don't know, they were low. So around 10:30, after we met with an anesthesiologist, my contractions were getting a lot worse. Pitocin contractions are so much different than a contraction with like natural labor. Natural labor, I feel like it just kind of like you rode a wave, and you kind of like, it like came and it went. And even if it like continued or you had like multiple contractions in a row, I feel like they just like, they rose and they fell, versus the Pitocin contractions. For me, by about 10:30, I was contracting every like 1.5 to 2 minutes, and they were like on and off. So like they would start and it felt like someone was like stabbing me in the uterus. It hurt so bad, and it was really, really sharp. And so it would come on really fast and then it would leave. Versus I know with my son's labor, again, I kind of had like rolling contractions, which were a lot more manageable. And they still sucked, of course, but the Pitocin contractions were really hard. So when my doctor checked me at 10:30, I was 5.5 centimeters about. And that was great. That meant that I was progressing and we were doing good. And I was like, okay, we can do this. Like, I really wanted to try to labor as long as possible without an epidural. And if possible, I was really hoping to be able to deliver without an epidural as well. But I knew that my chances of getting an epidural were pretty high because I was getting induced. And so that was something that we had talked about, we were comfortable with if I needed that. So after that process, I continued to labor. My doula was great. She massaged my shoulders. It kind of like just helped me out. I really liked having a doula because my husband was able to like help but not like be exhausted. My doula kind of helped manage that. So like, you know, if he was massaging me or she was massaging me or, you know, whatever, my husband was able to leave and go grab food. You know, he wasn't gone for long, but he was able to like go have a meal and then come back. And my doula was able to go and have a meal and come back. And so those, it's just really nice to have a doula, someone who's been in a lot of different births, be available. And then we continued to labor and it sucked and I was having a really hard time with it. Most of the time I was either standing or I was sitting on the toilet. For whatever reason, sitting on the toilet relieved a lot of pressure for me. I actually had multiple bowel movements during that process as well. And so it just kind of felt good to release things. Sometimes I didn't have to go, but just sitting somehow relieved the pressure. It's probably the same as like sitting on like a ball or something like that. But we didn't use a ball for whatever reason. It just didn't really come up. So then as labor kind of continued, one funny thing that happened during my delivery, we had these wireless monitors on your belly. So it was just kind of like a couple like little spots that stuck like right around your belly button to monitor the baby, so you can walk and move and things like that without being like restrained to the bed to be monitored. Because when you're on Pitocin, you have to be monitored for like the baby's heart rate and stuff. And at one point I was, you know, sitting on the toilet. I had gone to the bathroom. It was not like a formed bowel because again, I was in a lot of pain and that's what my body was doing. And the little chip that was in the center of the monitor fell into the toilet. And I was just like mortified. I was like, oh, this whole like laboring thing is like just a very humbling process anyways. And there it goes, dropping into the used toilet. And my nurse had to like come and like dig it out and like wash it off. And like, it was just like, just one more thing. It was kind of funny. So at least that brought a tiny bit of humor in. The nurse that actually took it out of the toilet was somebody that I know from church. She had actually just like come in to check on me occasionally. She wasn't my set nurse, but she was, you know, she knew me, so she wanted to kind of check on me. And so we really got to bond over that one. But the contractions continued. I was contracting about every minute and a half for about 2-3 hours, and I was getting really, really tired. Around 12:30 or so, my doctor came back in and she checked me, and I was still 5.5 centimeters. And I just started crying. I didn't really have any other emotions but to cry and be really frustrated. Both my doctor and my doula like looked at me and they're like, Ellie, this is not an indicator of how long your delivery is gonna last or labor is gonna last. Like, this is just, you just haven't progressed. That's okay. That doesn't mean anything. You're still contracting regularly. Like, you're doing great. And I was just so tired by that point. And again, like it's not like I had been laboring for like hours and hours and hours, but I was laboring every like 2 minutes or under for a couple hours, which is not something that you normally do. Normally with contractions and like a natural labor, that would be like the very end process. And this was like the whole laboring process. And so it was just really hard. And we kept checking my blood sugar. My blood sugar was still in the 70s. And around, I wanna say it was around like 12:30 or so, I went to the bathroom again, because like I said, I was on the toilet a good bit of time. And I remember my doula was standing in front of me and I was just like, Catherine. And like, she just like helped me and hugged me through it. And I was thankful that my contractions were short. They were lasting about 20 seconds at a time, but they were so painful when they were on. I had a really hard time. So I was sitting on the toilet, the lights were off. My doula was in front of me. I was just hugging around her waist, putting my head like against her belly, like just pushing my head against her belly, trying to find relief. And after that contraction, my nurse came in and she checked my blood sugar. And at that point, my blood sugar was, I think it was like 65, 66. again, the lowest it should be is like 80. And I was like having hot flashes, I was shaking, and it was like, I'm already drinking a bunch of Sprite. Like, I cannot keep doing this. I'm only 5.5 centimeters. I don't know how long I'm gonna be laboring. They, you know, obviously don't allow you to have food. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, if I cannot have like an actual meal, like, I don't think I can keep going, because I'm still gonna have to push. Because in my mind, it's like, it's one thing to just labor, but it was possible that I was gonna have to push as well. And so I kind of sat there for a minute and prayed, and I was just like, Lord, I think I want an epidural. Please, please just like I'm gonna start crying. It's like, please just let everything go smoothly, because epidurals are kind of scary. Again, I'm putting her pacifier back in her mouth. And they are serious. Like, it's not something to take lightly. It's a big deal to get an epidural. You know, things can go wrong. You can have complications. I could need a C-section afterwards. You know, all sorts of different things were running through my mind. But I knew prior going into it, okay, if I want one, like, I felt at peace about it. And so I came out of the bathroom and I looked at my husband and I was like, I think I need an epidural. And he's like, okay. He, like, in his mind, he's like, I would have had one, like, from the get-go. I don't know why you want to labor naturally. And my doula, we talked to her, and she, you know, she obviously is pro natural delivery, but she, you know, we talked about it before. And so we started the process. We told our nurse, like, hey, like, this is happening. Like, we're gonna get an epidural. Like, I can't, with my blood sugar being low, I can't keep doing this. And so the anesthesiologist came in and we started the process, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. The worst part was that, so when you're sitting on the bed, they made you sit, the bed's like this way, so you're sitting, I don't know, this way. And they made you sit on the very back of the bed with your legs straight forward and just kind of like leaned over a little bit. It's like, you're contracting during this point. This isn't like you're just like sitting in bed. So that was the worst part, was like just having to like be still. You know, they came in, they're like, it can take upwards of 20 minutes. I was like, freaking kidding me, 20 minutes? Like, I get it. And I get that they have to be careful, but that was a long time. And so I was sitting there. It really didn't bother me at all getting it. I didn't feel anything. They, you know, they don't really let you look anyways. And so, you know, they numbed the area. That was like the only part that like hurt, I guess. That was contracting anyways. Really, nothing at that point was hurting anymore. So we were getting it done, and my husband starts getting a little green, a little pale. The anesthesiologist, he like turns around to the nurse and was like, could I have like some Sprite or something? And the anesthesiologist was like, you need to go sit down. Like, you are a different color than normal, and I don't want you passing out on me. We don't need this. She needs to be sitting still. And he's like, no, I'm okay. And talking to him later, he was like, I guess it was just the thought of you having an epidural. Like, he wasn't watching or anything. He didn't like really see the needle or anything. It's just, it freaked him out for whatever reason. And he doesn't really do like getting blood taken and stuff like that anyways. He doesn't really do needles. And so that was kind of humorous to me. I'm glad he didn't have to sit down. He made it through, but I was like, babe, you look green. Like, you don't look well. But they finished the epidural process. I kept contracting during it, you know, every minute and a half. My anesthesiologist was awesome. She just kind of like, anytime a contract came, she stopped, let it happen, and then she would keep going. She was really patient with me, which was really helpful. And then I leaned back and we started the process of getting an epidural. It was weird. It just kind of felt like your legs were asleep. I don't know what I thought it would feel like. I guess I thought it would be like completely numb, but it just kind of felt like your legs were asleep. And for me, when they started it, I had like a shooting pain. I don't know if you classify it as a pain, but it's kind of like a shock, like down my right leg. So she was like, okay, it's possible that like it works more on one side than the other, and it did. It worked more on my right side than my left, but I didn't really feel like that was that big of a deal. And so we continued. The epidural worked great. Like I said, it did work better on one side than the other. Once they kind of got it going, I could still kind of feel contractions, which I was happy about. But I told the nurse I still kind of felt them, and she turned it up again, and I was like, no, like I was ready, like I was happy to like at least feel it a little bit, so I could like tell that I was laboring. But then I just couldn't feel anything, which was kind of a bummer. But then the nurse checked me. I want to say she checked me, so I probably finished getting the epidural around like 1:30 maybe. And the nurse came and checked me around like 2, and I was fully dilated. And it was like, I am, are you kidding me? She was like, she came in, she checked me, and she's like, oh, your cervix is gone. And I was like, where'd it go? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, you're 10 centimeters, like you're ready to go. And I was like, okay. And Jay and I were looking at each other, we're like, my water hadn't broken or anything like that yet. And we were like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. Like, here we are. And I was so mad because it was like, I was 5.5 centimeters at like 12:30. It's 2 o'clock. After all this process, I had just gotten my epidural finished and like done, and I was fully dilated. And my doula was like, Ellie, it's very possible that because you got the epidural, your body was able to relax and dilate. It's possible that had you not gotten the epidural, that you would have labored for longer. She's like, you know, there's just no way to know. And I was like, but I was so close apparently. And usually when you get to the point in labor when you're like, I just can't do this anymore, usually that means that you're getting pretty close. And that's what happened with my son Jones. It was at the point that I was like, I'm exhausted, I can't keep doing this. And I was like 9 centimeters when they checked me. And so anyways, I was fully dilated. It was around 2 o'clock or so, and we just kind of got started. So they called my doctor. She was not coming down, the water hadn't broken or anything like that yet. My doctor had offered to break my water earlier during the laboring process. But when you break your water, well, yes, it can help speed it up. It makes your contractions a lot worse. At least in my experience, it made them a lot more painful because you don't have that cushion any longer. And so with this one, I was like, no, let's just keep going, it's fine. So they called my doctor, and we were sitting there. I was laying back, they kind of were getting things started. And then everyone just kind of left, and my doula and Jay were sitting there, and my doula was looking at me, and all of a sudden the towel just goes, and like my water had broke, and I felt it, and like, but it like exploded underneath my blanket. And my doula looked at me, she's like, did your water just break? And I was like, I think so. And it had, and she was like, that is crazy that it just like popped like that. Like apparently Claire's ready to come out, she's making her debut. And so the doctor came in, I wanna say it was like 2:15 or so. My doctor came in, I was excited to see her. She was excited that I was about to have my baby. She gets all gowned up. She's like, has her gloves on, everything. They're like, everything's kind of coming down. They're adjusting the bed. And then another nurse comes in and was like, Dr. Yu, your patient next door is like she needs you. Like she's giving birth right now. And I was like, she was like, okay, I'll be right back. And I was like, what? Where are you going? Like, I need you. Like, I'm about to give birth. Like, I don't understand where you're going. And it was just like, okay. So like all of the nurses basically, except for like my main nurse, left. And my main nurse is just kind of like checking on me every every minute or so to make sure like, you know, the baby's not like coming out. And yeah, and I'm just like, all of a sudden, like after a few minutes we hear you know, cheering and a baby crying and stuff like that next door. And then, you know, a minute or two later my daughter comes back in and she's like, okay, we're ready. And by that point, like my nurse was like, we need Dr. Yu in here. Like, we need your doctor in here now. Like, you're about to have this baby. And she was trying to be like really calm, but you could tell she was like, I don't want to deliver this baby. And so luckily my doctor came in, everything was going well. Again, my blood sugar was still low. And so when they were asking me to like get ready and start pushing, I was really weak. I felt like I did not have hardly any gumption. And it wasn't just that like I was tired, but when you have low blood sugar, you literally just feel so weak. And so that was really hard. Luckily she was coming. I had a mirror in front of me so I could watch, which was great. I was really happy about that choice. I had that with my son as well. And it's just a really cool experience to like watch your kid come out. But at the same time, like I was really weak and they were telling me to push and I felt like I couldn't push. But I had to push because I didn't have a choice. And like I was like drinking Sprite in between pushes, trying to like keep my blood sugar up. And it was just kind of like a surreal experience because I didn't feel anything because of the epidural. It was really strange. And I didn't love it, honestly. Like the like rush of having a natural delivery is cool. Like I liked that. And the feeling of the baby coming out during a natural delivery is just incomparable to anything else. Like I don't know, it's like pure ecstasy. And so when this time when I had an epidural and I couldn't feel anything, like I had to have them tell me when to push. Like I didn't know when I was contracting and I just didn't like it. I wish I could have felt at least a little bit of what was going on, but I was able to watch through the mirror, like I said, which was cool. It was cool to like kind of watch her come out, see my body like expand, and literally like expand. And you know, I was pushing and I was just thinking to myself like, open, like allow the passage to open for her to come out. And she came out and she like popped out. I like reached down there, I got to pull her up to my chest, not super far up because my doctor was like, that cord's not very long, so bring her back down a little bit. And so and I had my baby girl and it was crazy. I couldn't believe that she was here, and it was a really cool experience to not feel it. I wish I had been able to feel it more. I wish there was some sort of like middle ground between like natural birth and having an epidural, because I think there's something special about being able to feel it and feel the pain, and also just the ecstasy that you feel afterwards. The rush of hormones that you feel afterwards is just unbelievable. I can't compare it to anything else. And so, but she was out and things went pretty well. She nursed fairly soon afterwards, but they did obviously take her to get like tested and stuff like that, and she did end up having low blood sugar. So again, they really want a baby's blood sugar to be no more than below 40, and hers was like in the 20s. And so they were like, okay, I think we need to take her to the NICU. And I was like, no, please don't take her to the NICU. Like I was really scared that they were gonna take my baby to the NICU. And because they asked me, they're like, okay, we think that she needs to go to the NICU. Her blood sugar is really low. Do you want to do donor milk or do you want to do formula? And I was like, what? Like, I was like, I have milk. Like, I know I have milk. I had pumped the day before trying to kind of induce labor anyways. I was like, I know I have milk. Let me like hand express and give her milk. And so we did. And I was able to give her like 6 like spoonfuls of milk. And the doctors were like, how do you have so much milk? like the nurses were so surprised that like I was able to just like spoon it out and able to get her blood sugar up. I guess she just hadn't nursed well enough before they checked, but they gave her 6 spoonfuls. They waited a little bit and her sugars went back up, which was so wonderful. And then she was able to stay with me the rest of the time. So she only had, I think she had 1 more low blood sugar, but it wasn't too low. So they allowed me to just like continue to feed her and encourage me to like, if she doesn't eat, to like spoon feed her, really be sure to stay on top of it. But that's it, man, that was a long video. I mean, I could go into so much more detail about everything, but I'm just trying to be as short as possible. Again, it's like multiple hours worth of information. And I think our labor and delivery video is unique. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk more in depth about certain parts. But yeah, it was a crazy experience to get induced and to labor while being induced without an epidural, and then to labor with an epidural and have just that full experience from a natural labor and delivery with my son to a medicated delivery with this one. And both are beautiful in their own way, and I'm just happy to have healthy babies. And even though it didn't necessarily go how I expected, it was okay. And I feel a lot more at peace about it than right after delivery. And so, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna try to end this video now before it gets like into like the 30-minute mark. But love you guys. Press the subscribe button down below and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.